Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of The Last Rep. I'm Bob Ciccarello, and of course, this is David Bay. What's up?
No, not much. Just a lot of stuff going on. Big weekend. Had the USAs last weekend. Got Tampa coming up. So a whole lot to talk about in the world of competitive bodybuilding. And for all the fee-fi full fum bodybuilding is dead naysayers, I think the USAs proved all of them very, very wrong. Just looked like an absolutely incredible show this weekend.
And it was, speaking of contest preps, my friend, you are looking lean and mean. We'll get into Baywatch, of course, a little bit later in the program. Right now, we're going to focus on the USAs, which I was there at the helm, David. And, you know, it's always pretty cool for me to go back there because I won that show on that same stage 17 years ago, were the now infamous words of Jim Mannion as he raised my hand in victory. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "Chick, congratulations, you finally did it. Don't touch the suit."
Don't touch the suit. I was on that stage, not everybody knows, 12 years ago, the same year Phil Heath won it. So imagine me qualifying for the USAs at the Mr. Wisconsin and deciding that I was going to skip junior nationals and head into the deep waters and getting backstage and starting to pump up. And there was Phil Heath himself pumping up right next to me, reminding me that I was way in over my head.
You were there to chew gum and kick ass, and you were all out of gum.
Yeah, I was all out of everything that weekend.
Yeah, so. Well, Phil would go on to, win a couple of shows after that, so he did pretty good.
Missed my chance.
Yeah, he did. He stole your thunder, but hey, listen, there was a lot of thunder going on in Vegas, buddy. 700 athletes. Bodybuilding is clearly alive and well. More importantly and more impressively, the bodybuilding portion of the event was actually pretty good. I mean, this is probably the best overall lineup I've seen, and you and I have been covering the show actually the last 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it's been. This was a better display, a little bit deeper, a little bit better, even into the supers.
Absolutely. I tell you what, you got to start with the overall winner, Derek Lunsford. Yeah. We saw Derek win the welters at juniors in 2015. He looked incredible. You could tell he had a lot of potential, but sometimes potential doesn't always pan out to what we hope it does. Derek came back as a middleweight in 2016, won the overall at junior nationals, got second place at the USAs, put on an obscene amount of muscle between last year and this year, right, and really dominated the light heavyweights. And as far as total package bodybuilders, I think Derek, from all the pictures and the video that I saw, handedly won the event. And for as much as, like I said, all the downers talk about how there's no big names coming out of the NPC anymore, Derek's going to be an instant impact in the IFBB. It's my understanding that he may be doing Tampa this weekend, which we'll get into. But Derek's a guy who, it's funny, I saw John Meadows predict on his Facebook page that we'll see Derek at next year's Mr. Olympia. And, I love John Meadows and respect the hell out of him. But I saw about 100 other predictions, and I was like, wow, you guys are real Nostradamus over here. I mean, Derek is that good where it's like predicting the sun. Minus some sort of major injury, predicting that Derek is going to be a good pro is like predicting that the sun's going to come up. I mean, it's a pretty safe bet. No disrespect to John Meadows, because I agree with him 100%. But Derek's one of these bodybuilders who can make an instant impact in the IFBB, and I agree with John 100%. I have zero doubts that we'll see Derek on stage at the Olympia next year. Not only do I think we'll see him on stage at the Olympia next year, I think his rookie year at the Olympia, if there's a possibility it could come this year, right. But I think his first or second time out at the Olympia, he'll be a top 10, possibly even a top 6 guy. He's that good.
Well, it brings up a good point, David, which is, look, the kid is good. I mean, there's no question about it. I'm always interested to see how somebody who just gets their pro card fares. Popping right into approach. And no, I don't think this is a bad idea, for the record. He just got his pro card. Tampa's next week. I don't know where he lives. If he's in Florida, great, even better.
I think he's in Indiana, I want to say.
Okay, but listen, you're 7 days out now. Now here's the chance you take. All right, I'm always reminded of Mike Matarazzo back in 1991 or 92, whenever it was that he won the USA for him, his pro card. And he got an invite from Joe Weider back then to go into the Olympia that year. All right. Now keep in mind, the USA was the same weekend pretty much as it is now. end of July.
Right.
So Mike accepted it. And again, I'm not saying that wasn't the best move. I mean, hey, you just got an invite from Joe Weider himself to the big dance.
How are you going to turn that down?
Now, the problem I got, though, is, now Mike was exceptional, as you remember, as a USA winner.
Absolutely.
He went to the Olympia and took dead last. All right? Now, here's the thing, David, all right? You just went from being the USA champion, the #1 amateur in the world, the most prestigious amateur title that there is, to last place at the Olympia in the span of 2 months, basically. So, you know what I mean? But you don't get any time to do this. Make appearances, be Mr. USA,
I think in Derek's situation, there's a couple things that we can look at where I don't really think the same thing is going to happen. Now, if we were to take some of the other, like Jacob Wilson, the heavyweight winner, Jacob looks absolutely fantastic. Or Justin Maki, the kid who got second in heavies. I know it was close between those two. Yeah. All the respect in the world to both those guys. And I think Justin will be a pro. I'll guarantee it. It's just a matter of when, not if. And again, no disrespect to Jacob or Justin, but unless those guys were to put on 20 pounds in a week, those are guys who need to grow into their classes a little bit. Now, granted, I don't know how much Jacob weighed. We've seen guys who have won heavyweights do well in the 212, so I don't want to write him off. But when I look at the other class winners at the USAs, I don't see somebody who's necessarily going to jump right in and make a huge impact. Now, I think a lot of the guys can in a year or so. Your super heavyweight winner, some of the other guys. But when I look at Derek and I look at how much he weighs and his height and how complete of a bodybuilder he is and how much mass he's carrying, I think it's I don't think we're overreaching by saying he's somebody who can make an instant impact in the IFBB. If you're taking a guy who's a heavyweight bodybuilder who weighed 218 pounds and say, okay, you're going to throw him into a pro show up against guys like Josh Lenartowicz and Max Charles that outweigh him by 20, 30 pounds. Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch to say some of those guys are going to be, instant impact in the IFBB. But if you look at Derek's muscularity, his structure, his conditioning, everything like that, I think it's a safe bet to say he'll do very well. Now, looking at the lineup in Tampa, the 212, which we'll get into later, it's definitely not going to be an easy run for Derek. But I think he can very well place top 5 from what I see in the lineup, and even that going from winning the USA to placing top 5. But the other thing we have to look at with Derek is the amount that he's grown over 2 years. He went from a welterweight to a dominant light heavyweight. Now, granted, from the pictures I saw, he probably could have been just a hair tighter, but he still had good conditioning, incredible fullness. And the other thing to take into consideration about Derek going into Tampa is I know he was a little bit heavy leading into the show and had to really pull back pretty hard to make that 198.
Sure.
So, sometimes, an extra 4 or 5, 6 pounds doesn't really necessarily hurt the conditioning. It just means they bring a fuller package to the show. So we could actually see a slightly bigger and improved Derek at Tampa than we saw at the USAs, being that now he needs to just be under 212 instead of under 198.
And that's a great point because he can go up, 5, 6, 7 pounds. I probably wouldn't suggest more than that. But you're right. And sometimes these guys got to sacrifice a little bit to make that class, which clearly might have been the case in his situation. I agree with you. I thought he was about 98%. He was almost dead on the money. There was a little bit of door open there, but his shape was so good that you couldn't deny the kid.
Yeah, it was interesting because everything leading up into the USAs, we didn't see a lot of the big names, and I think that's one of the reasons why people constantly ask, "Oh, is bodybuilding dying?" Because there's not like this star-studded lineup at the national level shows like there used to be. And, we can talk about too many pro cards being handed out or all the reasonings why, but I'm not going to argue that. But Derek was the hands-down favorite going in. But I'll tell you what, that guy who got second, Shane Stewart, in the light heavyweights, had Derek not been there, I think Shane Stewart very well could have won the overall as well. The second-place finisher in the light heavyweights, to me, from all the pictures I saw, looked absolutely phenomenal. Looked like he had very full muscle bellies, a lot of mass for a light heavyweight. I mean, just top to bottom, I saw some impressive guys in the lower weight classes. We had talked about Jeff Oralozza, we've seen him before at national shows look really good. He finally turned it on, won that bantamweight class. I mean, from top to bottom, the USA's was good. Your middleweight winner, Daniel Alexander, looked phenomenal. The super heavyweights, I was a little back and forth on the first and second place decision. I thought structurally and from a conditioning standpoint, from everything that I saw, I preferred Matt Berzacott's physique to Patrick Moore, the winner.
Yeah.
But it looked like Patrick's upper body was just absolutely massive, especially his arms. And so sometimes that gives you the little bit extra push you need to take that first place.
That was a tough one, David, and I was in the pit for most of that, especially for the light heavies through the supers. Berzacott has a better physique. The problem was he was just off enough that the other guy was in better condition. And yeah, he's losing a little bit in the leg department, but you know what? It wasn't that much. And like I said, it was close between those guys. Matter of fact, if memory serves, it was a 1-point decision in the supers.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I know I talked to Matt's coach on Friday. He said we're going to try to bring him in a little bit tighter. And from what I saw on Saturday, he definitely tightened up. So another one of those, missed the window by that much. But Matt took a few years off of bodybuilding, came back in a major way, finishing second at the USA's. And Matt's another one of these guys, like I said with Justin Maki earlier, where he's got so much potential, such good structure. Matt's got a pretty severe pec tear, but I think the rest of his physique is just phenomenal. And I think for him, it's just a matter of when, not if, he has the capability of running a pro card. And being a good pro, too, structurally and size-wise and everything. He's one of those guys where, he gets a little bit bigger. He could do well as a pro. So all
right, well, we certainly wish Derek the best in this 212 adventure this weekend. Should be interesting. I'll be there, obviously, calling the shots. And before we move on to Tampa, because, like I said, we've got some names to preview there, I got to give a big shout-out to the production team in Lindsay Productions. They did an A1 job. It was flawless the entire night, David, and you know how important that is when you're on the microphone. So
absolutely, can't emphasize.
I tell you, everybody from the back right up until the front, never waited on nobody. Great production. Music was dead on the money. Tamer and Tarek Elgindi, they're pretty much running the show out there for the captain, John Lindsay. He was there doing his captain invitation, and that was a good one. Like running for office.
Running for office, sure. No, I tell you what, it makes all the difference in the world when you got a good production crew. You can have as big of a show, hand out as many pro cards as you want, have whatever title you want for the show, but if you don't have the right people running it, it starts looking pretty messy. And when you have that many people crossing the stage, it's a production. And even at small shows, it's of the utmost importance. And when you get behind the mic and you're the face of the show, and you got to make it look like you know what you're doing. It sure helps when there's people behind the scenes who actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, makes our job a whole lot better. But congratulations to Tamer and his crew out there. They're doing a great job. And yeah, there was plenty of pro cars getting out there, bro. The bikini division actually had a G and an H class added. I swear it was like
I saw men's. Look, I don't want to get into. I saw men's physique. I was looking at the men's physique classes, looking for the scorecards for the bodybuilders. And I saw G, F, G, and H, and I had to do a double take because I thought it ended at F. I'm not necessarily going to say it's a bad thing, because if all you do is you add a couple more height classes, you're not actually dancing more guys across the stage. You're just having a better opportunity of comparing less people in each class. So I don't want to get, I know a lot of people, I've heard some people say the same thing. G&A, this is getting ridiculous. It's like, well, actually, you're cutting down the size of the classes and making them a little easier to judge, probably getting through them a little bit faster, actually. So when you look at it on paper, it kind of seems obnoxious, but from an organizational standpoint, from an expediting standpoint, and a judging standpoint, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and
it just looks like, holy shit, 8 classes.
Now, let me state for the record, that is actually why we do that from the Pro League, is to give better judging, cut down on the number. Listen, you don't want 50 people in a class. It's stupid. It's impossible to get anybody a look.
I think, what was it, Class D or E last year? One of the classes, I believe there was 63 competitors.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Too hard to judge it. It's not fair. So that's why the added classes. Like you say, it's not like we're adding heights to it. Like there was people that were 6'8" in there. So, but it was like I was looking for a Volkswagen with the clowns coming out of it after a while from these. I swear some of these chicks came through 4 times. I'm like, what? Didn't I just announce her?
Right.
But anyway, moving on. Tampa.
Talking
about Derek Lunsford making his appearance in Tampa. Like I say, could be a good move. We'll see if the rookie can capitalize 2 weeks in a row. Hey, maybe he can punch his ticket to the Olympia, but he's got some names to get through. There's some veterans in this lineup.
He does, and sure, and we can start off with the 212. Most notably, there's a handful of guys in the 212, about a dozen. Sami Al-Haddad,
The return of Sam.
he's not qualified. Sammy's got an absolutely fantastic physique, a little bit top heavy as always, but a beautiful structure. Usually comes in really good shape. We have two of the really good Korean competitors, Nam Eun Cho and Kim Jun Ho. Bola Ojex, which is, usually he can be a kind of a question mark. But, so there's a handful of guys. I look at some of these other names, Luis Santa, Wendell Floyd. There's a couple other guys who could show up and do pretty well. I have no idea who P.A. Chukwu is from the Netherlands, but you never want to write anybody off. But when I look at this lineup, I think Derek could very easily be, I don't want to say easily, I think Derek could be top 5, but if he can find a way to fill out a little bit and tighten up a little bit, it's hard to say how he's going to look against some of the bigger guys, especially veterans like Sammy. Yeah. But he could pull out a win, if everything goes right, and potentially go from being Mr. USA to the Olympia stage in a matter of 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
And I got to think maybe that's in the back of his mind. I mean, listen, to me, if you're going to go into an Olympia qualifying event, it would make no sense that if you were to win it, to not go to the Olympia.
No, and Derek loves the sport. You can tell he's one of these guys who's excited to be a bodybuilder. So I would, as I always say, I would bet my house that if Derek were to qualify for the Olympia, and I hate to put too much pressure on the kid. Let him enjoy his victory, as you said. Let him do some of his waves.
Hey, listen, he's in a no lose, bro.
Yeah, but I definitely think there's potential for him to win, but I can't see any situation where if he wins, where he would sit out the Olympia, because he can be competitive. Look, is he going to beat Flex Lewis, or is he going to stand next to Jose Raymond or some of those guys? Nah, not so much. But I think he's got the potential to be top 10 at the Olympia, if he shows up razor sharp. So I tell you what, these are exciting times for bodybuilding. They're exciting times.
Listen, my position has always been the same. If you have an opportunity to get to the Olympia stage, you take it. I don't understand guys that go in shows, qualify, and then just say, well, I think I'm going to take a year off. It's like, then why did you bother going in the show anyways?
If I qualified. Yeah, so from a shot in the arm for the excitement of the sport, and the liveliness of everybody leading into the Olympia, I would like to see Derek win. He's a nice young kid that I've had a chance to work with on a couple of occasions leading into shows, and I try not to pull too many favorites, but I am really, really pulling for Derek in Tampa.
Well, I'll tell you this, like I say, we'll be seeing him in just a few days now, but he has made tremendous progress. Like I say, he actually went up from the welterweights to the light heavyweights, which is pretty impressive. But nobody...
That's a big jump in 2 years.
It is a big jump. Nobody has made more progress this year than the king of the gym himself, Josh Lenartowicz.
Holy fuck it. He's posted some progress pictures. I mean, look, Josh was a big guy with a giant frame, and we've always seen that. He was a top 10 Olympia guy, almost beat Cedric McMillan in Poland 2 years ago. So we've known for a while now that Josh Lenartowicz has some serious potential. I think what was hard to envision was Josh putting him on the amount of mass that he has, especially over the last year. We know he had planned on doing some shows earlier on in the year, had to sit out for personal reasons or whatever, which, created a little bit of, I guess you could say, controversy as far as what's going on with Josh. But man, he's coming back in a big way. But he's putting all his eggs in this basket in Tampa, because if he does not win this show, he does not go to the Olympia. But when we look at the rest of the lineup, and you look at the progress pictures from Josh, it's hard to imagine somebody stepping in and beating him. Although he's not going to have, it's not going to be a cakewalk. We look at this lineup. Max Charles is there. Max Charles was one of the most improved bodybuilders of the year at the Arnold Classic this year. Kind of a couple of dark horses. Lucas Weiler, your Arnold Amateur overall winner last year, a big guy who took another year off to try to put on some more size. The big question mark for me, not on when, because not that I'm losing faith in On, nor do I think he could beat Josh, is Rashid Oldiker. If you guys remember Rashid, he won the
was last year's USA winner.
And he won the USA's super heavyweights in overall last year. Absolutely massive. Now, I think Josh has a bigger frame.
Yeah, he does.
Rashid.
He does.
But I think when we're talking muscularity, Josh's legs I think are bigger than Rashid's. But when we're talking pound for pound mass, I think Rashid probably hangs with Josh pretty well. And one thing we have to take into consideration is that Rashid's had another year to grow as well. So it could be very interesting. There's a couple other names jumping in. Your Nationals super heavyweight winner, Dorian Haywood, jumping in. I saw some pictures of Dorian a few weeks out. He looked like he's in the best shape of his life. Very well put together. Good conditioning. Regan Grimes coming off 2 top 5 finishes and a runner-up spot in Vancouver will be there. Regan, came to the United States to train a little bit for his final push to the show, and it looks like he's at his all-time best, a little bit fuller and a little bit leaner. So, it's my understanding that Regan is about 7 or 8 pounds heavier than he was competing in Chicago and Vancouver, and a little bit tighter. So it's gonna be a really good show, and Tampa always is. But it's definitely it's definitely going to be an interesting lineup.
Well, Regan is going to need 7 or 8 pounds to stand between Josh Lenartowicz and Rashid Oldacre. Those two guys are absolute monsters. He unfortunately for him, he's in uncharted waters. I mean, he's in his rookie year.
Yeah.
He's done extremely well. I'm a fan of his physique. I think he's a great future prospect. But you're talking months and months of dieting now. You're talking 3 pro shows in a row. I'm not so sure you're going to see a better package there. I mean, hopefully we will. But I think he'll be in the mix. But he's going to be in the 4th, 5th place mix.
I think he could be better. I think he came in here, did some training with his coach, Chris Aceto, and set up from a distance. And I know he's been out on the West Coast training with Sean Rode and some of those guys. And so I think we can see a better version of him. But like you said, Regan's really in uncharted territory in that his first show, Vancouver and Chicago, obviously he competed against some good guys, Michael Lockett, Kevin Jordan. So it's not like he stood next to just slouches, but he's never stood next to somebody like Josh Lenartowicz or Rashid Oldacre. And that's not to say that, he might not surprise us and we see him next to those guys and think, well, it's not as bad as I thought. But
I don't know about that, bro.
Josh is about 8 feet wide right now, and I have a hard time believing that anybody's going to be able to stand next to him.
Well, the only guy, in my opinion, that can stand next to him and have a chance is Max Charles. This guy's made some great progress over the last year, and we haven't seen him since earlier in the season, and I thought he was outstanding. If this guy's made another good run at putting on some muscle and bringing those legs up to match that tremendous upper body, he can hang with Josh. And I tell you what, if Josh is off a little bit, he can beat him.
Yeah, and Josh has been one of those guys who's generally had pretty consistent conditioning. I don't think we've seen him super, super razor sharp yet, but we haven't seen a version of Josh, I don't think, where we've been like, oh, wow, he's way off.
He's had fair.
I think he was at his best, when he maybe won San Marino or the Frigno Classic. He put on a little bit of size, sacrificed a little bit of cuts for some of his other shows, but he's shown up in good shape for every show. So, again, we've never seen a version of Josh Lenartowicz where we're just like, oh, man, he really missed the mark. So, knowing what's at stake for Josh with his Olympia qualification, I think he's probably, working as hard as he ever has. And if that's the case with somebody like Josh, he's going to be very difficult to beat. And like I said, you guys know me more than anybody hates to look at pictures and be like, I saw a picture, right? Because obviously I've seen a million pictures and then been to a million shows 2 weeks after, and they don't really line up what you see. But Jesus, Josh is looking big.
No, listen, he's going to be. It's going to be very big country-like out there with him. That's for sure. He's a big boy, like I say, and he was big before. Now he's put on even more muscle, and he put it on well. It's not like his midsection's blown out. You know what I mean? He's not just a big block. He looks great. Listen, he's definitely in the seat to take this title. And he ain't messing around. He's not coming all the way from Australia to take a second place and then miss the Olympia. And this is it. There are no other shows after this.
Have you heard whether if he wins, whether he's staying here for the Olympia or whether he's heading home for another?
No. I believe, from what I understand, I believe he's staying here. I don't know where, but I think he's. Okay. I got the impression he was not going to go back to Australia and then come back out and with
for the Olympia.
Which will be under 6 weeks at that point. I think that's smart. So he's probably got some people he can hang with.
Well, it looks like he's training down with Flex Lewis down at the Dragons down. Boy, I'm not sure what the nickname for Flex's gym is, but it's phenomenal. Him and Dallas are training there. And if Josh is going to be around any crew to be doing his Olympia prep, hanging out with Dallas and Flex Lewis is very good company to be in. So I'm excited to see what comes from Josh. And aside from being a great bodybuilder, he's a great guy to be around. Always laughing and smiling, and another one of the guys that really loves the sport, and he's a great ambassador. You know, he was one of the 3 guys at last year's Olympia who entertained the fans at the press conference and said, "Sure, I'll throw down and hit a couple poses with Cedric and Kevin Levrone." So Josh is a great guy, and seeing him win that show that'd be great.
How about you walk in the gym and you see Flex, Big Country, and the king of the gym all go at the same time?
I turn around and I say, I quit, and I walk back up.
Right.
Or you get super motivated. One of the two. You either just shake your head and say, what am I doing? Or you let it fire you up. One extreme or the other.
No, it's pretty cool, but we are expecting a blockbuster of an event. Now, the all-time record Tim Gardner owns for most pros of the show, that was set either last year or the year before, I can't remember, but it's like 223 pros. So they're on the verge of that right now. So he actually might break his own record this year with the other divisions. And that'll be cool. But all the brass is going to be there, all the top judges. It's a big, big event. If you're in the Tampa area, this is a great show to attend.
It is.
Lots of booths, lots of people there, lots of bodybuilding community down in Florida. So definitely come on out and say, hey. All right, David, that's going to bring us to my most anticipated moment of this week's episode. That, of course, is Baywatch.
Baywatch. I am, as we're recording this, I am 18 days out, and I'm excited to be able to look in the mirror and say that I'm in the best shape of my life. And I've worked really hard, and I haven't been traveling. I really don't have a lot of excuses to not be in the best shape of my life, so I'm going to try not to do any crazy voodoo, as we have discussed
Right.
in extent leading into the show. As we discussed earlier, you never really know who's going to show up at some of these competitions. I live a few hours. The show is about 90 miles north of Chicago, and with it being 2 weeks before the North Americans and a few-hour drive from the Twin Cities in Minnesota, we could see some really good competitors coming in from some of the bigger cities looking to either qualify or kind of get primed for the North Americans. But I don't care how cliche it sounds. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just worrying about doing my own thing, and I'm putting myself in the absolute best position I can to win. So
now let's talk about that for a second, because we spend a lot of time talking about pros and other shows, and hey, what's this guy get to if you win? So let's focus on this for a second. Let's say that you come out and you win the entire thing.
Yes.
Complete just a dusting of these guys, right? Just leave them in your wake. You win the show. What's next?
I would like to do next year's North Americans, and the reason why I say, I had considered doing it this year, and as I've talked about on Facebook and everywhere else, I'm very realistic about the physique that I have. I know where I'm at, guys. I spent 4 years critiquing the best physiques in the world. I made a lot of progress over the last year going back to heavy squats and heavy deadlifts. I had a little bit of lower back problems probably 5-6 years ago. Nothing major, no disc issues, no nerve issues, just some recurring soreness from actually some issues with my hamstrings, and my left hamstring and my left glute got incredibly tight, and it was throwing anything off. I had to go and see a chiropractor and do some physical therapy, but it wasn't really an issue of anything being damaged as much as it was just extreme tightness kind of throwing everything off. But the pain it caused, I kind of stayed away from the heavy squats and the heavy deads by recommendation of my chiropractor. And after my show last year, I said, screw it. I said, you know what? If I got two choices. In order to get my physique to where I feel confident getting back on stage, I'm going to have to do something different than what I've been doing. So I decided to add squats and deads back into my lift. And I figured if I get hurt along the way, look, I'm still training smart. I went up to, I was pulling 6 plates for 10 reps and squatting 5 plates and quarters. So I went heavy, but I never did anything stupid, and I think I've added about between, right now I'm about 15 pounds heavier and in better shape than I was when I competed last year. Nice. So I really feel confident about the progress I've been able to make in a year, but there's some more heavy compound movements that I can do, with my squats and my deadlifts. I still didn't do a lot of real heavy rows for my back, a lot of real heavy pressing stuff, and I would like to think that if I have one more year of continuing the training style I did with my squats and my deads, but adding in some other heavier compound movements, that I can bring a respectable physique to North Americans. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, you got to train to win, otherwise screw it. And that's definitely my mentality at for the state championships. And if I can't win the overall at the state championships, I don't deserve to go to even the North Americans anyhow. But for me, the North Americans is really good timing. It's going to be 2 weeks after this year's show, so I would essentially have a year to prep for it. I'm going to consider possibly doing the USA's. As you know, you kind of facilitated. I got a really cool opportunity to MC the Phoenix Europa, which is going to be at the end of July next year. So USA's was kind of off the books. But, the goal for me is North Americans and to go out and have a respectable placing. Like I said, I'm very realistic about where I'm at, and it was it was interesting because I saw some guys at the USA's. I almost PM'd a couple guys, almost made a long post. I saw some guys beating themselves up over their placings. And they're guys that I look at that, and you've seen this more times than anybody, guys that have really good physiques that are dominating state shows, but just don't really have what it takes to be a pro. And that's a hard pill for a lot of guys to swallow when you look in the mirror and you say, I don't have what it takes to be a pro. And we all know that so much of that is genetic. And, sometimes when you say, when you come to that conclusion and say, I don't think I can be a pro, you'll catch this backlash from people around you. Oh, you've given up or you don't have the right mentality. Look, some people just don't have the genetics to be a professional bodybuilder. And that doesn't mean you're a bad bodybuilder, but it's at some point in your career, you have to reassess where you're at and what reasonable goals are. I've had people come at me and be like, well, you've already won the Wisconsin. Don't you think you're cherry picking doing it again? I'm saying, absolutely not. No. I think I'm a really good state level bodybuilder. And if I think I really nail it at nationals, I can do well. And I know that about my physique and my age. And I think you get to a point, and look, that was a hard pill for me to swallow when I was younger, saying, you know what, I don't know if structural wise I can put on enough mass to be a pro. Look, I've competed. I've stood next to Phil Heath. I've stood next to Marcus Haley and all those guys. I did, when I did the USA's in 2005, I was like, holy shit, I'm so far in over my head. I better step back and do junior nationals. The year Evan Centopani won it. And I'm like, holy Christ. And I've stood next to these guys. I know what it takes to be a successful pro bodybuilder. And there's no shame in saying, you know what, that's not going to happen for me, but I still want to compete. And so I'm going to reevaluate my physique and, kind of align my goals accordingly. And so for me, you know what? If somebody wants to say that my goal to go to North Americans and just place well is setting the bar low for myself, then they're fair to say that. But if I go to a national level show next year and I can place top 10 at the North Americans, or God knows, maybe I can crack the top 5, then I would be very happy. But I do want to give one more shot at a national show.
Yeah, listen, I don't think there's anything wrong. I wish more people had your mentality. There's a fine line between obsessed and focused and dedicated, all right? I've seen the obsessed, and it's not a pretty picture. These are people with the never say die attitude. No, you can't give up. And it's like, look, man, all right, let's take one step back into the reality of what's going on here. Now, that said, there's a fine line, and one pet peeve of mine is, listen, you are, we've talked about this before. You're absolutely looking to try to win this show.
Hell yeah. I don't care what my language, there's no fucking two ways about it. I'm training to win. Right. Believe you me, I'm not going into this show, especially not at the state level, being, I want to do my best.
Yeah. See, I got a problem with
I'm training to win. I want to tear people's heads off.
I've seen more garbage on Facebook, and I got a real issue. Now, maybe I'm just old school, but I got this notion of, well, I won even before I stepped on stage, and my placing didn't really matter because I just wanted to be better than. What is this garbage? This is
there's a time and a place for that, for me, my time and place for that is, hey, look, if I go to nationals and I place well and say, hey, you know what, I hung with some of the best guys in the country, good for me. I'm not going to the Mr. Wisconsin to hang out and see if I can be in the mix. Screw that.
But this notion of just beating listen, you don't have to pay all the money you're paying. Put the time in and go there and compete to be better than you were before, okay?
I tell you what, I almost went off today, and I've seen this so much lately, and it's the cheesiest thing. When guys post pictures from last year and say, I just want to beat this guy.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I'm just going to be bigger and leaner than this guy.
Yeah, that guy was an 18th.
I get, and I suppose it's kind of, I'm talking out of both sides of my face here if I'm saying, look, you need to, assess real goals, but at the same time, but Look, I guess it just depends what you're training for. You got to have in your mindset that you're training to win. Look, make no mistake about it. I'm training to win.
Listen, obviously you're trying to be
North Americans next year. When I'm getting ready for the North Americans next year, the fuck if I'm not, excuse my language, I'm training to win. I'm training to win because you know what? I don't know who's going to show up in one shape or whatever. Now, do I think if the other guys that are top of the country show up in great shape, am I going to beat them? Probably not. But damn, if there's a window open and somebody screws up and I can slip in and take that spot, well, shit, why not? Why not train to win?
Listen,
train to win.
It's a given that you're always trying to be better than you were. Okay, that's a given.
I'm not trying to be
right.
Well, this guy last year was good, and if I'm 95% of that, then I'm okay. Nobody's training.
No, listen, that's a given. Okay, that's a given with anybody who is athletic or in competition. Of course, you're trying to be better than you. I'm not trying to be better than me. I'm trying to be better than this guy and that guy and every other guy that's standing on there.
I'm going to try to be better than everybody that gets on stage on August 19th. That's my goal. I don't care who they are, where they're from. That's my goal. But we'll find out. 18 days.
18 days and counting. You know what that means, folks. We will have at least one more episode of Baywatch, of course, before we actually get to the show. So that'll be pretty cool, man. But looking forward to that. Well, listen, Tampa is coming up as we're shooting this. It's Tuesday. Thursday, I'm off to Tampa, so we're literally only days away. I'll be very curious to see if this count goes up. If Tim Gardner and his crew beats the record. By the way, shout out to Tim Gardner, like I said earlier, folks, if you're in the Tampa area or anywhere even close,
check it out.
And you want to see a great show, come on down. 230 plus pros in attendance. Obviously, the NPC will be there. Probably be, I don't know, somewhere between 250 and 300.
Another cool side note for fans, and I don't know who's all going to be there this year, but I've gone in past years where Linda Murray's been there, Corey Everson's been there, Taylor's been there, freaking Tubbs from Miami Vice was there watching his stepdaughter compete.
I've seen Tubbs. Yeah.
There's, just if you're a bodybuilding fan, there's, you see a bunch of, I've seen Dexter's hanging out there. I've seen
my buddy Batista. My buddy Batista's been there. There's
Dave Batista.
Hulk Hogan is in that Florida area.
It's just a cool event to be at. So, if you're looking to see some superstars just hanging out in the crowd, and those are always good opportunities to get pictures, it's going to be a great event.
You got it. All right, David, well, that's going to wrap things up here for this week's installment of The Last Rep. For David Bay, I'm Bob Chick. We're out.